Today, we're diving into a really groundbreaking law coming out of Washington state. And what's so interesting is that this story isn't just about regulating guns. Nope. It's about regulating the computer files used to make them. And that really starts to blur the line between a physical object and just a string of digital code.
So let's get right into it. We're looking at Washington House Bill 2320. Now, this law takes aim at what people call ghost guns, but it does it by targeting something completely new, the digital blueprints themselves. The legal precedent this could set, well, it could have absolutely massive implications for tech, for privacy, and for the very definition of possession, not just in Washington, but all across the country.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the ghost gun problem the law is trying to solve. Then, we'll cover the ban on the actual physical guns. After that, we make the jump from bullets to bytes. Then, and this is the big one, we'll get into the huge legal questions this raises about presumption of guilt and privacy. And finally, we'll ask, could this be a blueprint for the rest of the nation?
All right, so first things first. To really understand this law, we have to get inside the heads of the Washington State Legislature and see the problem that they believe they're solving.
And this is their official justification pulled word for word from Section 1 of the bill. The whole stated goal is to fight what they call a growing threat to public safety, all coming from firearms that are really difficult or even impossible for law enforcement to track.
So, what exactly is an untraceable firearm? Well, the bill is super specific about it. We're talking about a gun that was made after mid-2019 and doesn't have that federally required serial number. Without that number, it's basically a ghost in the system.
And here you can see the modern process that has lawmakers so concerned. This doesn't start in some big factory anymore. It can start with literally anyone downloading a digital file, feeding it into a pretty common 3D printer or a CNC machine, and then, boom, you assemble a working firearm right there at home.
Okay, so let's move on to the most straightforward part of the law, how it deals with the physical guns themselves. This is the part that handles the tangible stuff you can actually hold. The bill pretty much makes it illegal across the board. You can't create them, you can't assemble them, you can't knowingly possess or move them, and you certainly can't sell or buy them. In short, it's trying to close what the legislature sees as a major loophole for these privately made, non-serialized weapons. But, and this is a huge but, the law does not stop with physical objects. This is where House Bill 2320 ventures into completely new territory. The focus shifts from the gun itself to the digital information that creates it.
If the law had just stopped at banning the physical guns, it would have been an update, for sure, but not really a revolution. The truly mind-bending part is what it does next, by reaching right into the digital world.
The law actually creates and defines a brand new legal category, Digital Firearm Manufacturing Code. This is a first. It treats the blueprint, that CAD file, the instructions sitting on your hard drive, as a regulated item, almost as if it were a weapon component itself. And this right here brings us to the absolute core of this explainer. This is where things get legally fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty controversial. We're talking about the profound implications of regulating a simple digital file. So here's the crucial point. It's not just about the act of making a gun anymore. Simply having the file on your computer with a certain intent is now against the law. But that just blows open a huge legal question, right? How in the world does the government prove what you intended to do with a file just sitting on your desktop? And here is the law's answer. It uses this powerful and very controversial legal tool called a rebuttable presumption. And trust me, this single clause represents a fundamental shift in how the law thinks about digital files and criminal intent.
Okay, let's break that down because it sounds like a lot of jargon. A rebuttable presumption basically means that if the state can prove you have the file, the court automatically assumes you have illegal intent. The burden of proof then flips completely. It's now on you, the person accused, to prove you didn't have that intent. The law is basically saying, we think you're guilty of intent just by having this file, now prove us wrong.
And looking at this side by side really makes the difference clear. Traditionally, you are presumed innocent. The state has to do the heavy lifting to prove both what you did and that you had a guilty mind. But under this new approach, just possessing a file creates a presumption of guilty intent, and the burden shifts to you to prove your own innocence. That's a huge change.
So this legal maneuver immediately raises enormous questions about due process.
I mean, how does this square with the principle of innocent until proven guilty? And what does it mean for our digital privacy? You could have a situation where just the suspicion that someone has a file could be used as a reason for law enforcement to search their entire digital life, all their emails, photos, everything.
So let's zoom out for a second. Why are we focusing so much on one single state law from Washington? Well, because its unique approach could end up having an impact way beyond its own borders.
The reason this matters nationally is because it establishes a whole new legal strategy. It's basically a potential playbook for other governments. By going after the source code and flipping the burden of proof, it opens up a completely new front in regulation. You can bet that other states are going to be watching this very, very closely as they look for new ways to approach this issue.
And really, that's the key takeaway here. The conversation is no longer just about the physical weapon. It is now, fundamentally, about the information, the speech, and the code used to create it, and what it even means to possess a simple file on your computer.
And that leaves us with one final and pretty provocative thought. As this whole new legal landscape evolves, we're all going to have to grapple with this exact question. Washington State has given its answer, and now the rest of the country is about to have its say.